Now, before we go into the main class today, I had promised many of you that I was going to teach you a technique of decision making and drawing inspiration to help you in your day-to-day decision making. Now, when you think about your decisions, where do they come from? When you have to make a decision, you will consult the past, your wisdom of the past, you will consult whatever the options are on the table, you will think about the future implications, you will process all the pros and cons. But then when it comes to making a major decision, where does that decision actually come from? Does it come from the mind? Where does it come from? And so ultimately, it's that thought that triggers in you that says, I will do this. And it may be based on all the considerations you have made. Sometimes you make that decision without considering everything, and then you deal with the consequences going forward. So what I'd like to do is to share with you a technique where while you consult the wisdom of the past, while you consult the wisdom of the future, of all the various permutations that may arise, you should also have a third level of consultation, which is with your higher self. And when you consult at that level, you're drawing inspired counsel, inspired wisdom, and then you make your decision. So you're in a much more solid and more powerful position when you make those decisions where you go within and consult your higher self. So I'm going to teach you a short meditation. So I'd like you all to sit back, close your eyes, and relax, and breathe freely. Let go of all your stresses and tensions and just go completely calm. Breathe freely and be completely relaxed. Totally relaxed. And I'd like you to imagine you sitting all by yourself in a small, dark room. It's very dark, you're all alone, and you're sitting all by yourself. Take a moment and just look around the room. It's just you and nothing else. And then in front of you, there's a window which opens. And as it opens, slowly it begins to let in a bright, warm, loving light. And when the window is wide open, the room is completely filled with this bright, warm, loving light. This is the light of creation, the light of hope, the light of peace, the light of love. And this light is flowing through your being, reaching every cell in your being. The whole room is now completely filled with light. Take a moment and look at this light and keep repeating the words, light, light, light. This is a bright, warm, loving light that is reaching every corner of your being, blessing every corner of your being, healing every corner of your being. Light, light, light. And as you look into the light, in front of you, you now see a pearl, a beautiful, shining white pearl in the light. And this pearl is coming towards you slowly. Take a look at this pearl. And it comes closer and closer to you. It's beautiful. It's white. It shines brilliantly. It has come from the light. And then it reaches the center of your forehead and merges with you. And now as you look into the center of your forehead, you see that pearl. Beautiful, shiny, white pearl, illuminating your whole being. Look at the pearl and keep repeating light, light, light. This pearl is your linkage, your connection to your higher self. This pearl is yours to keep forever. Keep looking at this pearl and keep repeating light, light, light. And from today, when you have a major decision to make, you go through the pros and cons with your mind, with your intellect. You consult the lessons of the past. You get counsel from all the wise people around you. You think of implications of the future. And then, when you've done all that, you sit quietly with your eyes closed and you look at this pearl. For this pearl is your connection with your higher self. It's a symbol of your higher self. And then you ask the pearl the question, what must my decision be? Because you as a being have given that decision all the thought and all the wisdom that you can. But now you're relegating that question to a higher level. You're placing it into the hands of the pearl. And once you've done that, you don't think about the subject anymore. Go on with your normal life, read a book, do whatever. But after you've completely disengaged from that decision, a while later, it could be a few hours later, you sit down, you close your eyes, and you think of the pearl, and you keep repeating light, 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 until you see this beautiful shining pearl. And you do that nice and slow, you take your time. And then you ask, what must my decision be? And the very first thought that comes to your mind is the counsel, is the wisdom from your higher self. The very first thought. It may not be what you want to hear. It may not be what you were expecting. But that is the counsel from your higher self. So now you have the benefit of all your material level thinking, and you have the counsel from your higher self. And then you decide what you're going to do. But now you have been receiving wisdom and counsel from the highest level of your being. So the pearl is your best friend. Ask for counsel. Ask for counsel from your higher self, and then make your decision. So keep looking at this pearl and keep repeating light, light, light. This is a symbol of your connection to your higher self. But in essence, you are asking your higher self for counsel. with complete humility. And remember, it's the first thought that comes to you, is advice from that level. And you can choose what you wish to. You may now open your eyes. So this is a very useful method of making wise decisions. Now, many people have practiced this technique, which I've shared before. But the problem is, if the first thought is what you don't like to hear, then most people go, oh, I need to consult the Pearl again. Oh, I must do it again. No, you cannot keep going back to it and then try with your mind to change anything. This is purely independent counsel that has come ungoverned from your mind or anything. It's that first pure thought. Now you may choose not to follow that. That's okay. You've had the benefit of that guidance. You may choose to follow it. You're also then utilizing a very important piece of guidance. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a technique that adds one more layer to your decision making. And that is the layer of your higher self. You submit yourself to your higher level and ask for counsel. Because we always make decisions in our lives on our own. It's a tough place to be. Let's also get help from a different level. So I thought I'd like to share this technique with you, practice it. Now, after today, you don't need to go into the dark room and see the Pearl come at you again. No, it's there. You've seen it. And that's all you need, is to close your eyes and think of it. And it's there. And what it's doing, in essence, is opening the door to you asking the question to your higher self. Your higher self knows what is best.
I wanted to talk about last week's meditation masterclass, session 4, that Amyn conducted. It was really, really powerful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Even though I was helping to facilitate it, I'm also a participant, per se. So yeah. I was really thoroughly enjoying that, especially the aspect of using the Pearl and consulting the Pearl for guidance. So I wanted to expand on that with you, because I understand that you've been using the Pearl for many years. Could you expand on that?
That's right. In fact, this is going back many years now. In fact, I would say about 10 years ago. I was fortunate enough to be sitting in one of Amyn Dahya's lectures, where he was actually teaching all the participants on how to use the Pearl meditation. So, as I said, I really consider myself very fortunate to have been there, because what I learned there has been really, really useful. And I've been using this technique ever since then.
Interesting, very interesting there. So before we go into how you've used the Pearl and everything else, how did you come to be a member of the Shift team? How did that come about?
Okay, so about 15 years ago, at that time I was reading a lot of books. I really wanted to learn about the creation and everything to do with the creation. So I was reading a lot of books at that time, and it just so happened a friend of mine gave me a book, two books. And they said to me, just read these 2 books with an open mind and see what you think. And these books happened to be written by Amyn Dahya. So I read these books once, twice, 3 times. And at the end of that, I thought to myself, you know what? I cannot imagine a human being would have written something like this. So I thought to myself, I've got to meet the author of these 2 books. And as luck would have it, Amyn Dahya was due to come to London, England, to do a series of lectures. So I went to one of the lectures, and I was just blown away. So I went to a second lecture, and fortunately, at the end of that lecture, I was able to meet him. I had some burning questions, so I put those questions to him, and the way he answered them ticked every single box for me. And I immediately said to him, if you need any help, with the work that you're doing, I'll be more than happy to help. And as I say, the rest is history.
Very fascinating, very fascinating. Your story sounds a bit similar to mine, but I think in my story, Amyn Dahya found me. I didn't find him. So
all right.
It's a long story, but I can share that at another time. But
yeah, sure. That'll be good.
Very similar. I've read all of his books as well, and I was fascinated by the books. Yeah. Again, like you said, everything ticked the boxes for you. Everything resonated with me, with my soul, with how I was thinking, what I was thinking about creation, the world. So everything clicked for me as well. So I was like, wow, okay, this is interesting. This is somebody that I can definitely learn from. You know, really understand a little bit more. I know you've got a very inquisitive mind, because I know we met before, and you do ask some deep searching questions. So
this is what I could see in those books. I could see something there that I thought to myself, how could somebody have written something like this?
Yeah.
And
it was inspired. He was inspired, clearly. So we know that he was inspired now. Anyway, so you've been using the Pearl. Let's get back to the pearls. You've been using the pearls for, many years now. You said about 15 years, I would say, or more than 10 years.
About 10 years.
About 10 years. You've been using them for about 10 years. So can you share with us, and some of the viewers that might be watching this, can you share with us some of the results you've got from using the Pearl?
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I'll just quickly mention that in that lecture where Amyn taught us this technique, one of the things he mentioned was that we should treat this with respect, and not just ask trivial questions like, what color lipstick should I wear today? Or what aftershave should I go and buy? Not questions like that. I mean, these questions should be important questions they're going to make a difference to your life. So these are the questions that should be put to the Pearl. So to give you an example, one of the questions. So another thing I should mention is that Amyn was also saying that when people use the Pearl, they get an answer, but it may take a different form for different people because everyone's different. So, for example, somebody may get an answer in an audio form. So they may hear something. That will be an answer for that person to that question. Other people may get an answer in the form of an inspiration. So they may get a thought that would answer that question. But in my case, one thing that I've noticed is all the answers that I've ever got from all the questions I've asked, all the answers seem to be in a visual form. What I see is either a picture in front of me or like a video in front of me. And that usually gives me the answer. So to give you an example, we were living outside on the outskirts of London, and we'd been thinking about moving to London for a long time. And properties in London, as everybody will know, are very expensive. So it was a big decision for us at the time. So I thought to myself, I've learned this technique of putting the question to the higher self. Why don't I do that? So I put the question to the higher self, whether we should buy a property in London or not. And the answer, as I said to you, I usually get answers in a visual form. So I found myself floating in space. I was surrounded by stars, planets, and I was floating, and suddenly I saw a planet in front of me, which started coming towards me, and it was very obvious. It was planet Saturn. Now, planet Saturn obviously has rings, so it was very clear that it was that planet, and it was no doubt in my mind. That's what that planet was. So this planet started coming towards me, and then it stopped. And then I thought to myself, I've asked a question about moving to London. What has Saturn got to do with London? So that planet Saturn suddenly, miraculously, stopped and started turning into a red circle with a blue line. Now, I don't know if you recognize this.
Put it a bit closer to the screen, a bit more to the middle. Yeah, left of you, a bit left of you. Yeah, bunga, wow. Underground, got it.
Right, so the answer was very obvious to me. The answer is yes, go ahead, buy a property in London. Because those of you who are familiar with London Underground, that is the logo for that. So the answer is obvious. Go ahead. In fact, I'll give you another example as well. Just recently, we had an offer of a commercial real estate that had potential to develop into residential flats. And there was a potential to make a reasonable profit from that project. So I was tempted. But at the same time, being a big decision, I thought to myself, I must put this question to the higher self and see what the answer is. Sure enough, the answer came in a visual form. I found myself in a small room, very brightly lit room. It was like a studio, very bright lights. And then suddenly I was looking in front of me and I could see a grey coloured blanket made up of tiny specks. That grey blanket was coming towards me. And it came closer and closer to me. And I could clearly see the very tiny specks that this blanket was made of. And this blanket kept coming closer and closer to me. And suddenly that blanket just covered me completely. And I was sitting there in the dark. So 1 minute I was sitting in the very bright room. Next minute, I'm in complete darkness. And the answer was obvious to me. The answer was no. Don't go ahead and do this. But as I reflect on it afterwards, those grey specks actually represented the coronavirus, COVID-19. As we know, what we're going into after the COVID-19 doesn't look very pretty from a commercial point of view.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Oh wow, fascinating.
So
wow.
in fact, Tosin, you might notice, but on both these answers, from my understanding, they're very intellectual answers. I find them just absolutely amazing, incredible. So when you think about it, when you put a question like that to the higher self is infinite intelligence.
Yes.
So it's not surprising that answers come to you in that way, in a very intellectual way, or to me.
But I think because you're a very deep thinker, you're a very intellectual person, so therefore it reflects you. And like Amyn says,
possible, yeah, that's true.
If you're an abstract thinker, you'll come to you in an abstract way. If you're a more specific thinker or a blue thinker,
that's true. Possible.
That way. So basically, I truly believe that your higher self resonates with who and your personality and who you are.
Yeah.
So those answers come very clearly. So for you, it's very clear, very vivid. It's not audio, it's very specific.
No, you could be right.
You have a vivid mind. So that's pretty fascinating to me. Now, that's very interesting because you've given two examples there relating to properties or real estate. So can we use the pearl? I know Amyn said yes, but have you used the pearl for other things other than just real estate? Can you give us other examples where the pearl has worked for you for other things, like a general kind of question?
I mean, absolutely. The pearl can be used for any kind of question. In any way that your life is affected. It doesn't necessarily have to be property or real estate. I mean, the only reason I've given those examples is just to illustrate how intellectual answers can be and how clear they can be as well. And they can give you very precise answers. In fact, in both cases, the way I see it, the first example of buying the property in London, we actually went ahead and did it. And to this day, we've never looked back. And that property was definitely the right choice for us. So
I completely agree with you, because on those two occasions, it was very clear answers to you very specifically. So that was really fascinating to actually hear.
So just going back to answering your question about whether the pearl can be used for any other type of questions, of course it can be. So it could be, for example, parents having to make a decision for their children, which school they should send their child to. It's a big decision. So of course, a question like that can be put to the higher self. Another example could be maybe a couple in a relationship. Now they have to make a big decision. Should they or should they not tie the knot? Things like that, that can be put to the higher self. But that's an important question. It could be something to do with health, maybe. A patient might have gone to a doctor, and the doctor might have said this or this, the choice is yours. And that person is obviously left in a dilemma. What do they choose? Do they choose A or do they choose B? So a question like that.
In terms of like a job opportunity.
Yeah, even a job opportunity, yes. Yeah.
Or it could be like a business trip or a business deal. So this could be used in many various forms.
Anything that is going to affect your life in a material way, in a significant way, of course, it can be put to the higher self. This is why I go back to the beginning when I said, Amyn did mention, treat this process with respect. Don't ask trivial questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions that are significant, and you will get your answers.
I truly believe that. Wow, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing your views on it, because I think everyone on the webinar last Sunday thoroughly enjoyed that part of the meditation of using the pearl. And I truly hope that people can see the significance right now, and maybe a lot more of us will start to use it on a daily basis to make major decisions going forward. But I really thank you for your time.
Absolutely. I would highly recommend it to all the participants to start using this technique. Very useful. It's just mind-blowing to me. In fact, I'll mention another thing as well, Tosin, if you don't mind.
No, please. Feel free.
In one of the lectures, the masterclass sessions that Amyn did, he mentioned about the flow. He mentioned that whatever gift you may receive, it may be intellectual, it may be financial, whatever, always make sure that you're part of the flow. So whatever you receive with the left hand, make sure you give with the right. This is why when I'd learned this technique, I was very, very happy to do this interview so that others can learn as well, because I found it extremely useful. And I really, really feel that people, should take this technique up, learn, and use it.
No, I completely concur, because I recognize that I don't even know whether I was at the same workshop that you were when he was mentioning it, but I've never taken it up to use it on a daily basis. So I'm definitely convinced at the value of it now. So thank you for sharing it. And I think lots more people will be using it now, just based on
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.